Atheism. It's bad for logic, bad for science, bad for humanity. At least if you follow the version of Richard Dawkins. And why do I say this? Well, at least following his latest expressions against the commercial done by Tim Tebow for pro-life during the Super Bowl. We'll be talking about this today on the Gary DeMar Show. Hello and welcome to the Gary DeMar Show. Once again, I'm Joel McDurmon, your host for today. I want to cover some of the comments made by Richard Dawkins as he attacked quarterback and American hero Tim Tebow based on his TV commercial done to support the pro-life cause during the Super Bowl last Sunday. This actually came out well before the Super Bowl. I guess it was seen by Richard Dawkins in some sort or fashion. And these are his comments to start. I gather that Tim Tebow is extremely good at football. That's just as well, for he certainly isn't very good at thinking. The following is what passes for logic in the Tim Tebow mind. I love the way he has access to Tim Tebow's mind, by the way. Excusing that for the minute, we'll assume that Dawkins has omniscience, and we'll read his version of the logic. Quoting, "His mother was advised by doctors to abort him, but she refused, which is why Tim is here. So abortion is a bad thing." Masterful conclusion. He goes on to talk about this at length. One comment to start is the fact that the commercial never says that. Yes, it does talk about the mother's struggle with her life, her decision. It really doesn't even talk about the decision expressly until you go to the Focus on the Family website and listen to the longer story. But then it shows him show up and it talks about how tough the family was to stick with their decision, basically. It never even mentions abortion. Of course it's implied there, it's a focus on the family, it's a pro-life ad, but it never mentions abortion. All it is a commercial to draw people to focusonthefamily.com. It never says abortion is a bad thing. It doesn't say that. So Dawkins has constructed the argument in a fallacious way, that is, he has created a straw man. Of course, we've come to accept this from Dawkins and most of the other atheists as well. That's the only way they can defeat Christianity, is to caricature it to begin with. Dawkins goes on to elaborate on this particular argument, and it is worth talking about anyway. It's a version of what he calls the great Beethoven fallacy. Quoting this, "About the termination of a pregnancy, one doctor said to another in the British Parliament, 'I want your opinion. The father was syphilitic. The mother was tuberculous. Of the 4 children born, the first was blind, the second died. The third was deaf and dumb. The fourth was also tuberculous. What would you have done?' The other doctor replied, 'I would have terminated the pregnancy.' And the first doctor replied, 'Then you would have murdered Beethoven.'" Dawkins comments, "It is amazing how many people are bamboozled by this spectacularly stupid argument." Why is this a spectacularly stupid argument? Because following his friend and colleague Peter Medawar, the world is no more likely to be deprived of a Beethoven by abortion than by chaste absence from intercourse. So Dawkins concludes, if you follow the pro-life logic to its conclusion, a fertile woman is guilty of something equivalent to murder every time she refuses an offer of copulation. Whew! If you're an atheist and you're a follower of Richard Dawkins, and I will say you have your opinions, I respect your opinion, you have your right to your opinion, but if you're going to follow Richard Dawkins on this, I encourage you to think through it. And here's why, for my Christians, brothers, and thinkers who already realize this is ridiculous, here's why it's wrong. The issue is abortion. Is it wrong to terminate a human life? The Tebow ad doesn't say one way or the other. It basically says that a woman was faced with a difficult decision. She stuck with the tough decision, had the baby, and it turned out to be the greatest blessing of her life. We'll talk about why that argument, if it is an argument for pro-life, actually is at least weak in one point. This is not it. To say that, yes, the world is no more likely to be deprived of Beethoven by abortion than by abstinence. But of course, the argument is not over. Is it right to be pregnant or not? The issue begins where the woman is pregnant, and that is the decision we're arguing over. So yes, there are good or bad people that can come in the world for many different reasons. Well, one or two anyway, more than just one. If you follow the pro-life logic to its conclusion, a fertile woman is guilty of equivalence to murder every time she refuses the offer to copulation. It is absolutely ridiculous. No woman is killing a life that already exists, and Dawkins realizes this. He has to stand up against this argument. He realizes how foolish it is. And he says this: religious apologists are unimpressed by this kind of argument because they say there is a distinction between snuffing out a life that already is in existence and a failure to bring one in the first place. Not a distinction that survives analytical thought. Okay, now let's hear Dawkins' analytical thought. Admittedly, he says, look from the point of view of Tim's unborn sister, and let us say who would have been conceived 2 months later if Tim had been aborted. Okay, admittedly, she is not in a position to complain about her non-existence, but then nor would Tim have been in a position to complain or regret or feel wistful or pain, blah, 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 if he had been aborted. Okay, what's the fallacy here? Number one, the issue has shifted from the ethical and moral argument of is it okay to abort a child that is already conceived in the womb to these abstract arguments about who would have existed and not, and really about who, in his own words, who is in a position to complain about not existing. Okay? Notice how the shift in the argument. We've gone from morals and ethics of an actual situation to who would ethereally have the right to complain. Actually, not even the right to complain. Who would be in a position to complain? Well, of course, someone who doesn't exist is not in a position to complain. And this is Dawkins' reasoning. Now, I want you to listen to this very closely. You need a functioning nervous system in order to complain, or regret, or feel wistful, or feel pain, or miss the life you would not have had. Unconceived babies don't have a nervous system. You stupid Christians out there, you ought to know this, that unconceived people don't have a brain. People who don't exist don't have a brain. Dawkins has got us here. He's got us in the corner. Back up and rethink your entire worldview, because we haven't thought about this in the abortion debate. People who don't exist don't have a functioning nervous system, and therefore they have no right to complain. Give up, you stupid Christians, you dumb homeschoolers, you. This is Dawkins' argument. Unconceived babies don't have a nervous system, nor do aborted fetuses. As far as anything that matters is concerned, an aborted fetus has exactly the same mental and moral status as any of the countless trillions of unconceived babies. At least that's true of early abortions. Pointless qualification at that point. Yes, is it the same? Of course it's not the same. You're dealing with something that does have a nervous system in the womb versus something that is completely imaginary. Unconceived babies don't have a nervous system, and therefore they don't have a right to complain. Well, guess what? I got one word for you: Auschwitz. I got some other words for you. Every serial killer that's ever existed could stand up in court and say, well, those people are dead. They don't have functioning nervous systems. They don't have a right to complain. All the people Hitler gassed, he could have simply said, well, they don't have a functioning nervous system anymore. They can't complain. That doesn't make it morally right, does it, Mr. Dawkins? So you need to back up and think about who is not very good at thinking. Yes, Tebow's good at throwing a football. I have no idea how good he is with logic, but I do know that if this is representative of Richard Dawkins' thinking, that atheism is bad for logic. Atheism is also bad for science and is also bad for humanity. We'll get to that in another program. Thank you.
For more related to today's topic, check out The Deluded Atheist, a response to Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.